Well, good morning everyone and welcome to the show. Today we have a Toyota Sequoia, an 04 Toyota Sequoia. Some of you guys asked that stuff. I'm gonna try to remember. The reason why we wanted to bring this one to you is because this one has the old school JBL system in it. Not that it sounded bad, it was just the speakers all fell apart. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So to take the door panel off, there's a few places you're going to want to start. Normally there is a cover over this screw. You want to pop it out and get to it. And then over to the side here is another cover. The sail panel is going to pop off. There's a cover down low here with a screw behind it. And then on the side of the door, there's two push pins. Now these push pins, you simply have to push in the little dot in the center. But be careful, because they like to drop off and go inside the door if you're too aggressive. You want to just push it in a little eighth of an inch and then pull it out. And when you're done with it, just push the end, pop it back out. Just don't pop it all the way. Put it back into the door and it'll clip in flush. Now the screws are all Phillips screws. Now this guy you have to be super careful with, okay? It's very fragile. There's a clip here and a clip here. Now on the back side of it, there's also another clip. So as you get these two off, you slide it this way. Now once you get to this point here, this just unclips. So there's just one little tab here on the bottom that holds this in place. Now this tweeters, you notice how far that sticks out, okay? So when you're going to lift this door up, if you're not careful, you will scratch this. So I do recommend just going ahead and pulling it off. And for that, you will need a 10mm. You can just hang it loose, and as you get the door panel off, it will find its place to go. Now there's just a bunch of clips in it that hold it on. Start in a corner, and just kind of work your way around. Did you see that? That's the grill for the factory speaker. It falls right off. Now you're gonna wanna lift this angle up first, and just kind of add an angle and then slide it back. You can also push this up and out. Just be careful, these front clips. It is metal. Sometimes it just, well, it's old. Let's just leave it at that. Here, I'll take it. And last but not least, you gotta unplug your little light in the bottom. So if you notice these guys right here, this is a three-way set. So even back in 2004, these cars were coming with a three-way set. This is the tweeter that sits right here. You have a nice metal tweeter, very bright, very JBL. Then you have this little 2.5-inch guy here, and you have this big 7.5-inch mid base here. And this is the problem. These, as you can see, these all were black at one point, but this all dry rots and falls off and becomes gooey, and you can just see how much it wiggles like left and right. So these things are dead, all of them. That side, the rears, the whole 9 yards. And depending on what year JBL system you got, depends on where your amplifier is at. And some of these, they had 2 amplifiers, and one of them they had 1 big amplifier. Either way, we're gonna be pulling that out and replacing all of that. And what we're gonna be replacing it with is this stuff over here. So we're gonna go with the Alpine's new ILX W650. We're gonna go with some Kenwood Exelon KFC XP 184Cs, 7-inch components, and then we're gonna go with some coaxials in the rear. Now we have 7-inch right now. We may need to switch those out for 6.5s. The model number on those is the KFC X 183Cs. And then for bass, because we need to put some bass in the car to replicate those 7-inch that he's gonna be losing, we're gonna go with a Rockford P300 10-inch. And that's basically the overview as far as what we're gonna do. Now, first on the list is we have to figure out what we're gonna do here. Meaning, are we going to just add our speaker into the bracket, or are we gonna make a whole new bracket? I don't know yet, so let's go ahead and we'll take a look at it, we'll figure it out. The first thing we wanna do though is go ahead and remove the speaker. So take a look at this guy. It's a 2 ohm shallow mount woofer, and in its day it was actually pretty nice. You can see the light of day there, see? Very nice. It wasn't bad. Like, I've heard these, they sound good when they're new. Now what we'll go ahead and do is, if you notice there's 4 wires here, we'll go ahead and unplug the main plug and we'll just unscrew the whole bracket. And to do that, there's 3 10mm bolts holding it in place. And here we go. Now behind it is just a normal size regular Toyota door. So my guess is we really don't need to retain this. I mean, I would like to get rid of it. Now the nice thing about these guys here is they come with those cool brackets. Let's open this up and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Now inside you're gonna get some cool 1-inch Tessa foam. This stuff is priceless, by the way. And you get these cool brackets here that I was just talking about. You also get some 6x9 converters. You get the 7-inch mid bass. You get some more foam for the back of the speakers. You get 2 tweeter crossovers here. You get some pigtails for the speakers. You get a bag of screws. You get 2 tweeter mounts. You get 2 tweeter brackets, universal mounts. And of course you get 2 tweeters. Now to get this tweeter out of the cup, you simply turn it and it will come out. So here's the actual tweeter itself. There's little teeth here on the side. There's no screw in the back. It's made to snap into some form of a bracket, and then the screws would be here. All right, let's talk about this bracket for a second. This is a universal bracket, so depending on what kind of car you're putting it in, you break off the corresponding tabs. If you go full bracket, that's made for some of the newer Toyotas. Inside here in the back, you'll notice these little clips that stick out. This is for GM. It's also just a spacer. If you take all the brackets off, you get a 6.5 to 7-inch adapter ring. That's why there's all these holes inside here. And then you have the other Toyota here. There's a Chrysler in it as well. On the back of the box, they give you all the breakaways. Let's head over to the car and just fit it on and see what it looks like. Now lining up the top screw hole, we can still see the 2 bottom screw holes, which means it's not gonna fit retaining the screw holes that are provided for you. However, all is not lost. You could simply drill new screw holes and still use this bracket because it's big enough. It's covering this giant hole. So we're gonna think about that and what we wanna do there for a minute or two. But Fernando's gone ahead and he's removed the back door. Basically, it removes the same way as the front door. So if you're trying to get one of these off, it's the same. But what we have in the back door is a 6.5-inch coaxial. Now it's not bi-amped, it simply has 2 wires. We have a tri-mount just like the front. However, this also will just unscrew, and a 6.5 more than likely will go right in. So we're gonna go ahead and pull the speaker out, and then we'll see what this looks like on the rear door. It's got a nice beefy magnet on it. Like I said, this was a good sounding system. So let's test this guy. What do you got? Alright, so we spun this one any which way but loose, trying to see if it would fit onto this, and there again, it's really made for the newer Toyotas, not these older ones. Not the end of the world. At this point, we have to decide whether to do a 6.5 that'll bolt right into that factory mount, or do we make another mount or modify this mount in order to fit it. And we still gotta figure out the fronts. So I'm gonna ponder that for a minute. I'll be right back. So the factory tweeter, as you saw, basically just has one screw that holds it in place, and then it falls right out. Tiny tweeter. We wanted to replicate that, so what Fernando came up with was mounting the speaker cup that they gave us. They just do 2 screws. We wanted a screw in the center, so we drilled it. Then we had to countersink it because otherwise the tweeter wouldn't fit back in because of the head of the screw. Then they give you some speed clips. These are the screws that they provide for you, so we're able to go back into the factory mount. Now we just twist the tweeter in like this one here. We'll go ahead and remove this wiring off of here because we can use their plug. We'll add in our passive crossovers and we'll be all set. But yeah, there you go. And then we'll take a fast forward here and we'll take a look and see what this looks like in the car. Now the nice thing about the sail panel is it already has all the foam on it to help direct all that sound out into the car. And there you go. So after spending some time figuring out what we wanted to do with the doors, we actually came up with a plan. We've done this before. We have a template already made up that fits a 7-inch Kenwood, bolts right into the front door. So this will bolt right into place. We actually wrote on there Toyota JBL. So we'll go ahead and router out 2 of these and get that taken care of. And then for the rear, we're gonna do the 6.5. So for the rear, we're gonna go with the KFC X174s. The reason why we decided to do that is we need a really big spacer to get it out away from the window. The factory speaker already has the 1-inch spacer. This unscrews. We're just gonna go that way. So let's go ahead and cut some plastic and router out some adapters. What we're gonna use to make this is a piece of 1/2 inch. Now the bracket needs to be a 1-inch bracket. So we're gonna make the back piece, and then we're gonna use their factory 1/2 inch spacer here, because there again, you can take all this off and you have a perfect 1/2 inch ring all set and ready to go. So they'll sit like this, and that's what we're gonna make. So first we've gone ahead and cut 2 matching pieces. We'll use some template tape and stick the 2 together. Alright, so what we got going on is we have our 2 pieces of 1/2 inch attached to our template, attached to our Mobile Solutions animal shield. Now what we want to do is, of course, test our height on our router bit. This is a dual ball bearing spiral cut bit. We want to make sure that the bit is high enough to clear the plastic, low enough to make sure it doesn't scratch our shield, and that the bearings are riding our template. Once we've adjusted it to the right height, lock it in place. Now all we want to do at this point is remove it from our router shield, leaving the template on, because we want to make sure we drill the holes. And always remove your tape. Now we can remove our template. So years ago when we made this, what we did is we flipped it over, and on the back here you could see this lip. Remove the lip, so we just cut that off, sanded it nice and flat. Then we mounted this to our plastic, and we made this half of it here. Then we flipped it, screwed it back down, and we made the other half of it. This area here that is this growth off of it, we just flipped it. We came up with this, we gave it back to the customer, but now we have a cool template. Now speaking of sanding, let's go ahead and sand this so it's nice and round. So even though they give you foam in the box, we're gonna go ahead and use our own, because this is a 1/32 foam, which is a little bit thinner than theirs, and we just want a gasket between these 2 pieces of plastic. Now we'll go ahead and line up our screws with the holes we've already drilled. Alright, so there we go. We screwed it from behind, because if we screwed it from the front, those extra screws would stick up on here, and that wouldn't give us a nice flat for our speaker. Now we can go ahead and use their foam on the back and on the front. So take yourself a marker and line up where these screw holes go before you put the foam on. You see, I started and then I remembered, because once you put this foam on, you cover up all these holes. So we've marked the areas that we're going to be putting our screws in. The other thing to keep in mind too is to not try to put the screws in the same holes as the screws you put in from the bottom. Alright, our panel is all set and ready to go. We can go ahead now and get these things wired up and get them into the car. Alright, so Fernando's got the driver's door all set and ready to go. We have the tweener mounted. The crossover is here. It plugs in there. Moving down, what we did is we removed this plug. If you remember, this is the plug that was attached to the factory speaker. It had 4 wires. This guy right here, Now, there's 4 wires that go into this because of the 4-channel amp. 2 of the wires are going to the mid bass, the other 2 wires are going to the little 2-inch. As we said, the tweeter and the 2-inch are on the same channel. We want ours to be on the same channel, so we took the wires that we're using for the 2-inch, which are the yellow and red, and we've lengthened them and attached them to our 7-inch mid-range. Now we have this speaker all set and ready to go. We can go ahead and get this door panel back on.